life cycle. When we talk about project life cycle, we talk about the beginning of a project to the end of a project. Right? Project life cycle simply means the point at which you start a project and the point at which you end it. What are those things that goes in between? Even in real life, we all have a life cycle. Life cycle simply means there was a time we were born, there was a time I was born and I was crying, mwah, 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 mwah. That was the beginning of my life. And after that, I started crawling, I started growing, I went to school, now I'm of age. As time goes on, I'll get much more older. Maybe I get to 100 years, maybe I get to 120 years, and I'll be looking for that to die. That is life cycle. The same thing in project, we have what we call project life cycle. But when we talk about project life cycle, we're talking about phases of a project. How does project start? How does it end? Phases of a project will start from what we call initiation period or initiation time. This is the period at which you come up with the thinking or with the aim, or you have the thinking of setting up a project. This is the time when you consider what we normally refer to as project charter. Now, after the initiation period, when you must have gotten a sponsor to sponsor your projects, then you go from initiation to project planning. This is one of the most important parts of project phases. This is the time at which you put every phases of what you need to do to make your project successful into plan. You have to carve out a modus operandi of how you want to carry out your projects. After you do the adequate planning, then you will have what we call implementation. Meaning that all the planning that you have put on ground, now you need to start implementing it one by one. Within this period of implementation, you are going to have what we call monitoring. You go to monitor everything that you are doing, that they are meeting with the plan. So after doing all this, and you can see that the planning are met, the implementations are good, the risks are taken care of, the time you've been able to meet it, the cost and the budget are okay, and everything is going to plan, and you complete the transactions and everything you need to do, then you can then try to bring the project to a closure, meaning that you have completed the project. So these are mostly referred to as phases of a project. Every project that you want to do, either you are using traditional method, or you are using agile method, or you are combining both traditional and agile together, you must have phases that you are going to follow. Irrespective of the methodology you want to use, you must have a time of initiation, you must have a time of planning, you must have a time of implementation, and you must have a time that you have to bring the business to closure. And this is one of the characteristics of a project, whereby we say every project must have time is starting and time is ending. as we go further, I will discuss more and expatiate more on all these phases of a project. So let's go to the next page of the slide. Now this is initiation phase. Like I said earlier, when you initiate, this is the time you'll be looking for a sponsor. Because initiation is something that comes from you, it could be because you are innovative, it could be because you want to establish something, it could be because you felt that community needs something. So because of that, you initiate it. For example, I can initiate to build school for my community without collecting school fees. That's a project. But if this is my initiation, then I need to write a proposal, I need to write a project charter, and I need to look for a sponsor. I will not be able to get a sponsor if I don't have a project charter, because my project charter is going to contain all the objectives, how I want to run the project, the cost, the risk, everything that the project will contain in a very miniature or small proportion. This is what I'm going to present to my sponsor, and if my sponsor sees that this project is worthwhile and it can assist me, moving me beyond initiation phase, then it's going to really accept to sponsor the project. And that's why project sponsor identification is always associated with initiation phase. Now, after you identify your project sponsor or you identify your project sponsor, the next thing you are going to think about under initiation phase will be to look at your scope. Deliverables are defined, meaning that you have to identify, list, and explain your scopes. Like I said earlier, scope simply means what your project encompasses of, what your project contains. In some instances, you may be able to tell your sponsor what your scope is not going to be part of. Then again, within this scope, you must be able to tell and identify the deliverables within this scope. What are those deliverables that you have within your scopes? This scope could be defined in relationship to organizational or your project goal. Within this initiation phase 2, you need to get a budget approved. Of course, it's going to be difficult to get a budget when you don't have a project sponsor. Now, the next thing will be, within initiation phase, will be to have broad statements you're going to make about the risk, approaches, and timelines. You have to identify the risk that you thought of that could face your project. While you have identified that, you have to identify approaches you are going to use for this your project, and approaches that you are going to use to limit these risks. You need to discuss about timelines. What are the timing factors associated with your projects? You need to identify stakeholders. Of course, your sponsor is part of your stakeholder, but stakeholder is broader